Presents a tale of two wireless customers.
Golden Freddy is one of the
Oh boy. Oh boy. Here we go. We have started. I don't know why the oh. Oh. Oh my bad, chat. Oh my god. Okay. I don't know. I'm in a strange mood. I don't know. I don't know why. Why am I in this mode? How you doing? All right. You don't like the color? All right, that's fine. We can change it here. Boop. Yeah. There we go. So, yeah, let's just like I feel like there's no need to waste any time. Let's just jump right into it. This is gonna take a while.
Golden Freddy is one of the most important characters in Five Nights at Freddy's, and as a result, there have been quite a few theories about who the spirit or spirits possessing it and what their roles
Spirits? See, that's already incorrect.
in the story are. However, while some of these theories have been the majority opinion for longer than I've been a fan of the franchise, one recent theory put out by the channel Dual Process Theory suggests that
Yo, why is everyone talking about dual process? Theory. Stop. You know what? Because there are three of these videos are about that. Oh my god.
not only are those theories incorrect, but everything we thought about Golden Freddy and its role in the story is completely wrong. From new perspectives on the events of Ultimate Custom Night and the Missing Children incident, to reinterpreting the survival logbook, the co-hosts of the channel, Corey and Connie, bring an interesting new theory to the table. But does that theory hold up? Are they right to say it's time to rethink the lore? Who's really possessing Golden Freddy, and just what part do they actually play in the timeline? Well, stay tuned and consider subscribing, because I plan to not only answer these questions, but also address how this debate relates to the theorizing community as a whole. First, I want to clarify that I will not be going into this.
I mean, okay, so wait, why are we talking about Andrew in relation to Golden Freddy if he has no ties to Golden Freddy at all?
Video with the mindset that the Fazbear Frights books are in the game continuity. While the game Into the Pit has reignited debate on the topic, as it is a game based on the first story in the series, the book series itself contradicts the games in several pretty major ways, such as
It doesn't though.
having the guard at Fnaf 3's location be some random guy who dies and sets the place on fire after one night on the job rather than surviving all 6, having Funtime Freddy chilling in some dude's garage rather than being an Ennard,
Count the ways Funtime Freddy is a different Funtime Freddy. We've been through this.
and the puppet gets dumped in a lake after Pizzeria Simulator. Meanwhile, we
No. Yeah. Should I just make a video for this where I just explain the misconceived so-called contradictions? Cause it's getting kind of silly.
We see its tearless mask
What up,
present
chat?
under the Pizzaplex in Security Breach. Scott Cawthon, the creator of the franchise, did say that some stories and frights are directly connected to the games, but directly connected does not mean directly canon, and could easily be referring to stories like the one with the alternate Fnaf 3, where there are
Stop. Say that again.
we see its tearless mask present under the Pizzaplex in Security Breach. Scott Cawthon, the creator of the franchise, did say that some stories and frights are directly connected to the games, but directly connected does not mean directly canon.
Okay, so let's grant that argument for let's grant that argument for 1 second. What do you think connected means?
And could easily be referring to stories like the one with the alternate Fnaf 3, where there are direct connections to the game.
That's not connected. But it's not. Also, there are 2 timelines in Frights. There's 2 of them. There's the regular, there's the Frights, and there's Stitchline. Stitchline is what he's talking about.
But it's still a different series of events. Because of this, while I do plan to reference
And also, what we found isn't in the Stitchline, so it doesn't really matter.
Frights for evidence, in this video I won't really be addressing the theory that the Fazbear Frights character Andrew is literally in the game continuity filling the role that many fans attribute to Golden Freddy. Instead, the theory
We attribute him to who?
literally in the game continuity filling the role that many fans attribute to Golden Freddy.
Well, no. No. Wait, what? Huh? Wait, what?
Andrew is literally in the game continuity filling the role that many fans attribute to Golden Freddy.
What? Is he doing that? I don't think No. That's if you assume Golden Freddy is Toy Shake, which he's not. So, no. No. We just give him the role of. I have not hit 2 minutes in, I'm still pausing. Jesus.
Instead, the first one is the crying child in Fnaf 4, who died after being stuck in the mouth of the Fredbear animatronic by his older brother Michael. After that, he was taken to the hospital, where one voice, presumably Michael, apologized, and another, who many assumed to be his father, series serial killer William Afton, promised to put him back together. From there, people suggest that William found a way to transfer his soul into the Fredbear animatronic, which would eventually become Golden Freddy, after some modifications were made to it before FNAF 2 that ended up changing the top hat and bow tie from purple to black. After all, under certain circumstances in Ultimate Custom Night, you can get jump scared by Fredbear in place of Golden Freddy, so it seems incredibly likely that the two are one and the same. Meanwhile, the second spirit would be Cassidy, one of the children killed by William in the missing children incident mentioned in the FNAF 1 newspapers, and in the spin-off novel trilogy, The Silver Eyes, which, despite not being in the game timeline, shares the fact that kids were lured to the back room of Freddy's by William Afton wearing the Spring Bonnie mascot costume, and stuffed in the animatronics to hide their bodies.
Okay, and Frights, they both share William being tortured in a hospital by a male spirit. Yet that's just suddenly non-canon. Alright, no, that's fine. I get it.
Cassidy in the books was in the Bonnie animatronic, but as the child possessing Golden Freddy in the novel trilogy doesn't exist in the games, and a game-specific character, Jeremy, is attributed to Bonnie instead, she would have been stuffed in the Fredbear animatronic, leading to her sharing the suit with the crying child who was already there. The evidence for this theory comes from a couple sources, such as Golden Freddy having 2 eyes lit up in the bad ending of FNAF 3, while the other
That's not 2 eyes. Why do keep people saying that's 2 eyes? This is 1 eye. No, look, and I'll prove it. Look. The light is indicated by do you see the circle outline? The circle outline, you got 1 here, 1 here, 1 here, 1 here, and 1 here. If there were 2 lights, there would be 2 of these. But there's only 1.
Animatronics only had 1, potentially suggesting Golden Freddy had 2 spirits instead of a single spirit like the others, and in addition to the survival logbook basically confirming that Michael Afton and the Mike Schmidt we play as in FNAF 1 are the same person, it seems to have conversations between 2 spirits, one using faded text and the other altered text.
Now with this is just, people like to say, oh, they're both talking, so they must both be in Golden Freddy. Not only is that a logical reach, but if no. Oh my god, no, I just don't. No. But I'm glad to tell you guys that the logbook is just a way to show us that Cassidy and the Bite Victor Garrett are talking at Freddy's because they're both in Freddy's. Makes sense.
Where one reveals their name to be Cassidy, and various objects connected to the crying child are connected to the altered text spirit as well. On top of this, one of the clues needed to find the name Cassidy is found by one of the spirits writing the words "my name" in faded text on a drawing of a tombstone by Michael, linking back to how at the end of the game Pizzeria Simulator, we see the names of 4 out of the 5 kids linked to the missing children incident, which, in conjunction with Cassidy being the name of one of the kids in the books, would imply that the Cassidy in this continuity would be the 5th, more mysterious and plot-relevant animatronic, Golden Freddy, and the one missing name on the gravestone.
Yeah, we did it. We did it. We finally did it. Okay, so now we know the spirit inside Golden Freddy. So therefore, this entire video is now useless. Man. I mean, it's true. The Golden Freddy's just Cassidy. It's not like it's nothing. I don't know how it can be more complicated than that.
This plot relevance culminates in Ultimate Custom Night, where we play as
Nope.
William Afton himself, trapped in a nightmare coma, though some interpret it as a legitimate afterlife of torment, inflicted by the vengeful spirit of one of his victims. And since beating the game's hardest game mode gives the player a cutscene of Golden Freddy twitching off,
He's fading away. He is fading away. Can I ask you something? When you're watching a movie and it fades to black, is that the beginning, or is it the end?
According to Lego Batman, all great movies start with black and then they fade to white.
Oh, so they fade in. So if the movie's starting, it fades from black in. It fades in, right?
Yeah.
And if it's ending, hold on. If it's ending, it fades out, right? So you guys so in this one,
off into the darkness, it's
Golden
generally
Freddy
believed
is fading away. If he were angry, wouldn't he be fading? Wouldn't he be getting closer? Wouldn't he be fading in instead of fading out? Food for thought.
that Cassidy would be this vengeful spirit. This would seemingly then be paralleled in Fazbear Frights with the characters Jake and Andrew, where
Oh my god, it's not a parallel.
Andrew was one of the children William Afton killed, who trapped William in a nightmare coma, and Jake was a boy who died of a head tumor. Both Jake and Andrew end up possessing an animatronic called the Stitch Wraith, where Jake had control of the body's sight and movement due to possessing the head, and
Yeah, that already debunks it because the bite victim can't see. He can't see, and Jake can. They just switched it, which means it's not a parallel.
Andrew was in the Stitch Wraith's power source and lacked the ability to see. As Jake and the crying child both died due to head-related issues, and Cassidy
But he can't see.
and Andrew were both kids William killed. Meanwhile, the altered text in the survival logbook mentioned being unable to see. The general view of the fright situation is that Jake parallels the crying child, while Andrew parallels Cassidy, with both of them possessing the same animatronic, but having their roles in terms of control functionally swapped. As in the games,
And it's not a parallel. What the hell?
the crying child can't see, while Cassidy would be in control of sight and movement. The thing is, a lot of this evidence is speculative, and that's where Dual Process Theory's video comes in. In their theory, they suggest that the evidence that was used to say that Cassidy and the crying child were two separate people possessing one animatronic was completely misinterpreted. After all, the only reason Jake and Andrew had different levels of control over the Stitch Wraith was because they were possessing different parts of it that were eventually
And also different emotions. One was agony, one was love.
combined. Something that isn't implied at all to be the case in the game, since Cassidy's body would have been put entirely into the animatronic. And on the topic of Cassidy, the source for Cassidy being a female missing child is the Silver Eyes novel trilogy, which already has one missing kid who doesn't match the game's Michael Brooks. Scott has reused names for characters before, such as the several Jeremys in this franchise, and just as there is a Michael Afton in the games and not a Michael Brooks, there could then be a Cassidy Afton instead of the Cassidy we see in the novels. The name Cassidy is
Wait. Excuse me. What did you just say?
Brooks. There could then be a Cassidy in this franchise, Michael Brooks. Scott has reused names for characters before, such as the several Jeremys in this franchise, and just as there is a Michael Afton in the games and not a Michael Brooks, there could then be a Cassidy Afton instead of the Cassidy we see in the novels.
What? What? What if I told you that William canonically has 3 children?
The name Cassidy is, after all, revealed in a word search where there is also altered text saying it's me. So why wouldn't the name Cassidy belong to the spirit speaking through the altered text? Additionally, in Help Wanted 2, we find action figures and memory dolls corresponding with each animatronic. But rather than 2 Golden Freddy dolls or action figures, we only have one of each, potentially indicating only one soul actually present in the Golden Freddy animatronic. While the second eye lit up in FNAF 3's bad ending would potentially work as evidence towards 2 spirits, dual process theory argues that this would be representing Charlie, a spirit who is also around for FNAF spirits. While the second eye lit up in FNAF 3's bad ending would potentially work as evidence towards 2 spirits, dual process theory argues that this would be representing Charlie, a spirit who was also around for FNAF 3 and, as of a few games later, ended up inside the animatronic Lefty, a bear with a golden eye who captured the puppet animatronic she was possessing so her father Henry could release the spirits in the Pizzeria Simulator fire. Additionally, at the end of Pizzeria Simulator, the grave that's presumably Charlie's is behind all the others, similar to how Golden Freddy's head in
Please tell me you're not about to say Charlie's and Golden Freddy. Oh my god. No, 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 no.
FNAF 3's ending is behind the other 4. Charlie could then also be the faded text in the logbook, where she tries to help the crying child remember who he is, possibly to help him move on, similar to the role she plays in FNAF 3. Alternatively, the channel hosts also suggest that this could be William Afton, as it seems possible that the reason William's suit looks different in Pizzeria Simulator compared to FNAF 3 is because he used parts of Golden Freddy to alter his suit after the FNAF 3 fire.
What? Where are you guys thinking of this stuff?
To FNAF 3 is because he used parts of Golden Freddy to alter his suit after the FNAF 3 fire.
How does that work? Exactly. How in the hell does that work?
Specifically, they propose that William Afton was able to upgrade his suit in this way because the springlock suit Michael Afton gets temporarily stuck in during Sister Location is actually the Golden Freddy suit.
Huh? Do they have like proof for that, or is this just like yes, because reasons? Is that it?
Having been relocated to Sister Location, where William would know it would be, after the events of FNAF 1, evidenced by having similarly shaped eye sockets, and Scott Cawthon declining to specify the identity of this springlock suit during the
Because it doesn't matter?
interview he gave several years ago. Also, as a note for those who may not be familiar, a springlock suit is an animatronic where its mechanical parts are held to the sides of the suit by spring locks to fit a human performer inside. However, the spring locks are a bit unstable, and when they malfunction, all the animatronic parts return to their original locations, aka where the person's body was. Anyway, the theory that this suit is Golden Freddy is also their proof that not only was Cassidy the crying child, but that there was no
Excuse me?
that this suit is Golden Freddy is also their proof that not only was Cassidy the crying child, but that there was no 5th missing kid. Rather, the 5th kid linked to the disappearances was the crying child himself. They proposed that, since the bodies were never reported to be found, they would have never been removed from the animatronics. Then, operating off the theory that the Sister Location springlock suit is Golden Freddy, Mike being able to get inside the suit would mean that there was no missing kid's body left in there in the
What?
first place. Because of this, they suggest that after the crying child got bitten by Fredbear, he didn't die in the hospital, but was taken home by William, who wanted to help him recover. He stayed at home in his coma until William ended up killing the other kids and finding out about Remnant, and then was put by William into the Fredbear
He knew about Remnant before that. What?
suit and intentionally spring-locked to make him possess it. However, Fredbear didn't respond, and since there would have been spring-lock scars on the body, it would be clear that Cassidy hadn't died from his coma. As such, William hid the body in a box
Wait, what the hell? Okay, we're just like, we're I don't know what. Well, hey, Master 21. Oh my god. What world is this in? Cassidy's a guy now? What the fuck?
to explain the purpose of the unopened box were shown at the end of FNAF 4. Around this same time, because a man in a costume was suspected to be behind the murders and someone was convicted according to the newspaper articles we see in FNAF 1, dual process theory explains that William and his business partner Henry, who would be familiar with the springlock suits and how to use them, would have been questioned by the police. William would have then used his own child mysteriously vanishing from his bed as an alibi for just being another grieving parent, and Henry would have been arrested and convicted. Because of this, and because how in Help Wanted 2, there are graves representing each animatronic animatronic that need to be lit in a certain order to unlock a secret, with the puppet being the last one, Henry's daughter Charlie would have then been killed after this point. Their timeline of events then have the events of Fnaf 2, the opening and closing of Sister Location's predecessor location, then Fnaf 1, with Golden Freddy being moved by William to Sister Location after that, followed by William's spring locking and the events of Sister Location, then Fnaf 3, Pizzeria Simulator, and Ultimate Custom Night. Ultimate Custom Night is where they suggest some more things need to be changed around from the usual interpretations of events.
Why? What do you mean they need to be changed? What?
They suggest that, rather than Golden Freddy, the character actually tormenting William in that game would be his other son, Michael Afton.
What? Okay, alright. I don't know if I can finish this video. Oh my goodness. So wait, okay. Actually, no. This is good. So if Mike is a vengeful spirit, that means he... Oh boy.
Their evidence for this is that, while the vengeful spirit is portrayed as a child and described as the one you, meaning William, shouldn't have killed, the fact that Mike was killed by the Funtime animatronics who thought they were killing William after
He didn't die though. He literally didn't die.
William shouldn't have killed. The fact that Mike was killed by the Funtime animatronics who thought they were killing William after Mike was sent to Sister Location by his father would qualify his death as being the result of William's actions and give him a solid reason to be vengeful and stick around after dying. On top of this, the vengeful spirit forces William to essentially go through what Mike had to during the events of the games, functionally taking the role of a security guard fending off animatronics. The clip we see if the hardest game mode is beaten would then not be a sign that Golden Freddy was the one keeping him trapped. Instead, dual process theory states that this isn't actually Golden Freddy at all. It's whole and not withered, Fredbear before he was Golden Freddy, with Cassidy's body inside being spring-locked, William Afton's biggest regret. Except that's not exactly possible, is it? While all of this may sound fine on the surface, there are actually a few major issues with the theory as Corey and Connie present it.
No, there are humongous issues with this.
For example, the shot we see in Ultimate Custom Night may not match withered Golden Freddy like we see in Fnaf 2, but it doesn't match Fredbear with his purple hat and bow tie either. In fact, it looks pretty much exactly like Golden Freddy in Fnaf 1.
It is.
1, where it was prepared from its withered state after the events of FNAF 2, just under different lighting. The fact that they flat out say that this isn't Golden Freddy and is definitely Fredbear in its prime before ever getting withered is a misrepresentation of one of the few facts we actually have in the series, and while I don't think they intentionally meant to mislead their audience, this isn't the only example of incorrect information or things being misrepresented in this video. They refer to the scooper as a remnant extractor while displaying on screen the blueprints that confirm it to be a remnant injector, which is more likely to be the cause for why Michael was still around after Sister Location rather than just his desire for vengeance on William. They also say that Charlie had to be the last to die because of the grave.
Because by that dumb logic, that means Mike survived from pure willpower, no pun intended. And I find that hard to believe.
And help wanted too, but it could just as easily be representing how her mask was the last to fall on the happiest day ending of FNAF 3, or the back left position.
And guess what? Fright supports this, but it's non-canon, right?
Of her grave at the end of Pizzeria Simulator, something that seems significantly more likely given the fact that in Pizzeria Simulator, her father Henry specifically said,
so in the minigame, the MCI's masks fall first, at the same time, and then the puppet is last. Now, in Pizzeria Simulator, FNAF 6, the MCI get released at the same time. And guess who stays around to kill William and the Afton amalgamation? The puppet, meaning she moves on last. Look, I don't know, man.
Says that he was the first one impacted by William's actions, something that wouldn't make sense if multiple other kids died before his own. They say that the eye sockets of the Sister Location Springlock suit match up with the inside of the Golden Freddy suit in the trailer for Into the Pit, but not only are the eyes not the correct shape, but Golden Freddy doesn't have faceplates. And there's a world of difference between faceplates that are attached to the head but can open up, and the fact that Bonnie can have his entire face as one whole piece removed. This issue in particular is a major one, since Golden Freddy being the Sister Location Springlock suit is what a large portion of their theory relies on. Is there evidence that there was no body in the Golden Freddy suit, and therefore no actual fifth missing kid. With this being the case, even if the name Cassidy did belong to the crying child and not a different kid William killed, the theory that there was no fifth missing kid other than the crying child loses a lot of its credibility.
It's just no, it's just blatantly wrong, which means
Especially when you consider that there would be no point in William removing the crying child from the suit in the first place. After all, the whole point of him putting the bodies in the suits was so that they wouldn't be found. So it doesn't make sense for William to springlock his child, then remove the body out of concern that the body that was just as hidden as the others would be recognized. And then
yeah, that's literally my point. And also, not only that, but he's like 3 feet tall. So what the hell?
proceed to tell the authorities that his kid was kidnapped. He could just have said that the kidnapper took his kid, and if the body was found in the springlock suit, say that the kidnapper was the one who put him there. Relatedly, and this is a bit of an aside, but while I do think the idea that Henry was the one accused and convicted is cool, I have my doubts. While the Fnaf 1 newspaper does say that someone was convicted, that same article instead says that the suspect was charged, which is not the same thing as being convicted or proven guilty of a crime. I think it's likely that when Scott wrote that, he didn't realize the difference in the terminology, particularly
Exactly, yeah, he doesn't know definitions, which is kind of important when making a game.
given the fact that in installments in the franchise that came later, he seems to emphasize that William was the one primarily suspected, but it was the lack of bodies that led to no conviction taking place, and
So that's a retcon.
William going free. Which checks out, given another one of the newspapers mentions that security footage identified the killer, and the police only think he lured the kids using a mascot costume. But tangent aside, Golden Freddy not being the sister location Springlock suit isn't the only thing that undermines the argument that there was no fifth missing kid. After all, look at the Foxy Go 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 minigame in FNAF 2, where we're shown William smiling and the bodies of 5 kids. If the 5th kid was meant to be the crying child who William was trying to save, why would William be smiling? Why would the crying child be grouped in with the others at
Because he's a psycho. He is a psycho individual.
Freddy's for Foxy to find? Even if Help Wanted To only shows 1 Fredbear of each collectible and only 6 graves like Pizzeria Simulator, the reason for this isn't that the 5th missing kid is the crying child, but it's more likely because William didn't kill the crying child, Michael did. And as such, lumping the crying child in with the other missing kids wouldn't make much sense in the context of showing William's victims. Relatedly, the argument for Cassidy being the name of the crying child, while understandable, is rather
It's wrong.
flawed as well. While dual process theory argues that the name being revealed in the word search containing altered text means the name belongs to the speaker with altered text, this completely negates the fact that all the hints that lead to the clues to solve for the name in the first place read my name. Not your name or his name, but my name, as in the name belonging to the spirit writing the faded text. In fact, this is actually backed up via the altered text in the word search. Dual process theory mentions that on the page opposite the word search, there's a mirror with the question, "What do you see?" underneath it in faded text, and suggests that the word search would then contain the crying child's answer, "It's me, Cassidy." However, what they seem to mostly ignore outside of a passing mention are the 2 other sentences that appear in the word search. Who are you, and what is your name? The crying child's response to being asked what he sees in the mirror isn't "It's me, Cassidy." His answer to what he sees is just "It's me," followed by the questions "Who are you?" and "What's your name?" which the faded text spirit answers in turn by making use of alterations to the book made by the crying child and Michael Afton to spell out their own name, Cassidy. Because of this, I think that the evidence for the crying child and Cassidy being separate people seems much more straightforward. And I think it's a similar case for Cassidy being the vengeful spirit instead of Mike. Every time we see a vengeful spirit in FNAF, it's a child who was killed by William Afton. The Fazbear Frights continuity has Andrew, and the FNAF movie has a blonde boy who is shown being lured by William Afton at the very beginning of the movie. Why would it be any different here, where we're told that someone William killed, not someone William got killed, but someone he should not have killed but did, is the one who trapped him in Ultimate Custom Night? As much as I do see the evidence that dual process theory presented for Michael, I don't think it's substantial enough for the theory to work when put up against the counter evidence. They write off the vengeful spirit looking and sounding like a child as Mike just appearing at the age he started being traumatized, but my first question if this is the case is where did his British accent go? And my second is why would Scott tell the vengeful spirit's voice actor that the gender of the spirit should be unclear? Additionally, as far as we can tell, spirits manifest at the age they died, whether that be as a child, such as in the case of the missing kids, or as an adult, like William in Fazbear Frights, and this one kid's grandma in Tales from the
Hold on, what the f is going on? YouTube, are you okay? God.
the Pizzaplex. I don't believe we've ever actually seen any instances of a spirit manifesting as a different age than they actually were when they died. Dual process theory also talks about how one line in Ultimate Custom Night proves that Henry isn't the vengeful spirit because the spirit refers to Henry in the third person, saying, "He tried to release you, he tried to release us." But they neglect to mention how that very quote ends with the spirit referring to a second person trying to release the spirits as well, when they say they'd keep William trapped no matter how many times they burn us. This indicates not just Henry
You realize they can be singular too, right?
as an outside party, but someone else who had also attempted to burn them. The only fire besides Pizzeria Simulator by this point in the franchise is the one we see in Fnaf 3, where the guard sees hallucinatory phantoms of animatronics from Fnaf 1 and 2 before eventually setting the building on fire on the last night. In order to have hallucinations of those animatronics, it would make sense for the player to have seen them before, and since we play as Mike in Fnaf 1 and most likely on the last night of Fnaf 2, not to mention it would make sense if we played as Mike at some point in each of the first 6 games to connect the narrative, this guard was likely Michael Afton. As such, this line from Ultimate Custom Night implies that not only is Henry an outside party, but so is Michael. This, combined with the issue of the vengeful spirit's depiction as an American child that William specifically shouldn't have
Male American child. Male.
killed, is enough for me to say that Michael being the vengeful spirit doesn't seem particularly likely with the
It does. It does. Because in that same game, we have Toy Chica the High School Years, which talks about victims that William killed, and he didn't kill Mike. So, yeah, I don't know. It's kind of...
the evidence we have. Though if Michael doesn't work as the vengeful spirit, that brings me to another point that dual process theory makes. Why Cassidy? What makes Cassidy the one William shouldn't have killed? What makes Cassidy so
She's not. She's not. Why are there 7 victims?
special? Well, other than how I'm pretty sure the title of the one you should not have killed mostly just stems from the fact that if William hadn't killed them, he wouldn't have ended up in Ultimate Custom Night. I think part of what makes
If he didn't kill Andrew, he wouldn't be in Ultimate Custom Night. Yeah, exactly.
Cassidy so special is the fact that Cassidy is connected to Golden Freddy. While
But Golden Freddy isn't the vengeful spirit. So, like, now where do you go?
Michael represents the human side of the first 6 games arc, Cassidy represents
Scott did everything he could to dissociate Golden Freddy from the one you shouldn't have killed, actually. Otherwise, he would have given Andrew a Golden Freddy mask. But he didn't. So, yeah.
the spirits. While Michael has his arc of killing his brother to having his own life ruined by his father to helping try and bring everything to an end in Pizzeria Simulator, Golden Freddy has its own significance in the story as well. It appears as a specter in the first 2 games, and in FNAF 3, we see a 5th spirit chase William into the spring Bonnie suit he gets spring locked in after he tears the other 4 animatronics.
Because we're... This could have been literally like any of the spirits, literally anyone, literally every single one. It could be any of them. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Also, we kind of have to. Do you want us to control 4 different spirits at once? 5 or 1? Which would be better for gameplay convenience?
Animatronics apart. Events that I would like to note probably take place before FNAF 1, as Phone Guy seems to have been alive for when Fazbear Entertainment found and sealed William in the room after the fact, but that is besides the point. Additionally, one of FNAF 3's potential endings centers around giving a Golden Freddy spirit their happiest day, allowing all the other spirits the ability
they move on.
to move on. FNAF 4 is
My point.
all about the events centering on the crying child and
Ladies and
Fredbear, and while
gentlemen.
Sister Location and Pizzeria Simulator don't highlight the presence of Golden Freddy, Ultimate Custom Night does. Not only do we see Golden Freddy if the max difficulty is beaten, showing the animatronic is significant to the events we see, but the representation of the vengeful spirit talking to the character Old Man Consequences is a bear. While dual
They drown in a lake, meaning they're moving a... Oh boy.
process theory does mention that the sped up ambiance might be William calling out to Henry and Michael, potentially casting the old man and the bear as Henry and Mike. I honestly find it more likely that no matter who Old Man Consequences is or is not, if the audio is meant to be William calling out, it would more likely connect to how Mike and Henry were the ones who tag teamed setting William on fire again. Pizzeria Simulator was the culmination of Michael's arc. He tracked down his father just like he promised to in Sister Location, and his final living act was to take him down by trapping him in the fiery death maze Henry created. Meanwhile,
Still
Ultimate
didn't
Custom Night is the culmination of Golden Freddy's arc. After trying and failing to destroy William Afton by spring-locking him, the vengeful spirit wanted to make William suffer. So, using the
You forgot a crucial part. He wants to keep him alive. Cassidy wants him dead. That's a pretty big difference there.
Connection between them that William created by using parts of Golden Freddy to modify his own suit, Cassidy set up Ultimate Custom Night, making William
Okay, I can't. I can't do it. I can't do it, Chad. This is crazy. I can't do it. Oh, man.
We learned last week that there's going to be an
Alright,
announcement from Steel Wool on August 4th, and almost everyone is sure that it's either going to be a Help Wanted 2 DLC or the next Fnaf game by the company. If that happens to be a new game, a lot of people are theorizing that it's going to be about Fall Fest. But that leaves the question, what would that even look like? Why would there be lore, and what would it tell us about the timeline? Well,
Why would there not be lore in a mainline game?
since Help Wanted 2's flat mode came out, I was able to go out of bounds myself,
What
and
up,
I
Chad?
may have just found the secret that answers those questions. So Slices, put on your aprons and let's bake ourselves a theory. So what is Fall Fest? And why does everyone think it's going to be the setting of the next Steel Wool FNAF game? Well, admittedly, information on Fall Fest is relatively sparse. We have a lot of references to Fall Fest, but not a lot of direct information about it. Although these references do date back quite a while, all the way back to Help Wanted 1 in fact. When the Curse of Dreadbear DLC came out for Help Wanted 1, we were greeted to a new lobby. One in the middle of the woods with a sign that said Fall Fest 83. Looking around this lobby, it's definitely in the FNAF 4 woods. After all, the FNAF 4 house is literally in the background along with a windmill and a giant lake. All of this surrounded by a bunch of dead trees. Nothing is too of note here, but it's important to establish what this looks like to reference other minigames to link them to Fall Fest. For example, the Foxy Chord Maze, which is almost certainly in Fall Fest, features the same windmill as well as a water tower. So we can assume wherever Fall Fest was, there was a windmill and a water tower very nearby. Other things to keep in mind about
It's quite the assumption, but yeah.
this iteration of Fall Fest is it is within Help Wanted, which then implies
Excuse me? Wait, what?
things to keep in mind about this iteration of Fall
I barely got through one. Jesus Christ. Like, dude, I'm getting gray hairs because of this.
Fest is it is within Help Wanted, which then implies that this is something Fazbear created to show to the public. So we can't
What? Wait.
which then implies that this is something Fazbear created to show to the public. So we can't fully trust what we're seeing here. It is worthwhile to note that it's filled with Fazbear animatronics and characters. Finally, whenever you collect a prize in the Curse of Dreadbear levels, you're taken inside the barn where there seems to be some sort of birthday party going on. But that's pretty much all we get about Fall Fest in Help Wanted 1. Like, it shows us the idea of Fall Fest, but it doesn't really delve into it or tell us what it was about. But after Help Wanted, we got Special Delivery. I've talked extensively on Special Delivery and what it tells us about Fall Fest in a video that you can watch right here. But for the sake of this video, I'll touch on it again. Special Delivery featured a DLC AR event
You're talking about Great Escape, fucking Houdini-ass Golden Freddy, I don't even know. Yes, he's tied up and being, yeah.
called Dark Circus, where it was essentially an escape room that you would face off against animatronics and try to solve puzzles to get through. Now, it should be noted, never in this DLC are the words Fall Fest ever stated, but it's notable that this is a carnival attraction in a circus with a hay and straw floor with fire hazards all over the place. So it does kind of seem like it would have been a part of Fall Fest. And keep in mind what I said about the fire hazard thing. There's literally barrels of oil and fireworks with a dry straw floor and thin wooden walls in this attraction. It's literally
It's like they're asking for it to be set on fire. What the fuck? This is what I'm talking about.
like as close
You have people that are making sentient robots in the 70s and then they pulled this shit. Like, what the
to a bomb as a building can be. So is this Fall Fest? Well, it may have been an attraction at a Fall Fest, but look around. It seems very purposefully scary and self-referential, not unlike Fazbear's Fright from FNAF 3. And the fire hazards here are so over the top to the point that it might be on purpose and fake. Not to mention the whole thing seems fairly up to date with new animatronics that haven't been seen before. Almost as if this
So this strengthens my theory that Fall Fest was a trap.
whole thing is up to date and purposefully scary, rather than authentically aged that you might have seen at the time. So to me, this reads as a new attraction that Fazbear put up to play on the past ideas about Fall Fest. Much like Help Wanted in general, something new that Fazbear is creating to make light of the past and previous allegations of the company. Stop going out here. The green screen ends here, Riley. Now, this has all been good so far, but a lot of the meat and potatoes we get about Fall Fest are within Help Wanted 2, which is why that game is the main focus of today's speculation. And Help Wanted 2 is flooded, relatively, with information on Fall Fest. For one, and this is possibly the biggest one, the background of the claw machine where you get prizes out of is a Fall Fest poster. In fact, it's a stylized poster with the Freddy and Friends on tour designs performing at a Fall Fest with the marionette in the background. This is huge, and it possibly even gives us a time frame to look at this poster within. And not to mention, this poster in general is a massive piece of information, but the fact that you have to look at it after literally every minigame seems important to me. And honestly, that's just the start. One of the prizes you could win is this poster, stating Fall Fest 1970. On this poster, we get the additional detail, albeit stylistically, of a big top tent, pointing to something more circus-like. So these posters are cool and all, and they give us more information into the time frame, but this game goes—
Dude, you've had this poster on you the past 5 minutes.
Even further and gives us more minigames set within what seems to be Fall Fest. It's heavily speculated that Fazer Blast is meant to be styled as if it were a part of Fall Fest. I mean, it has the pumpkins, the lantern, the hay, you're outside in a Curse of Dreadbear-like environment, and you're playing a carnival game. To me, this screams Fall Fest. Not to mention that same water tower and—
Or it could be carnival. Stranger Things.
windmill that we saw in the Curse of Dreadbear DLC. But when you look at the games we're actually playing, they couldn't have taken place in a Fall Fest. After all, the very first minigame in this location features Glamrock animatronic designs and a song from the Super Mega Pizzaplex. So is this, like the Dark Circus, a new event, or is this just a new game within an old event? It's honestly hard to tell, not to mention the fact that Help Wanted 2 is not Help Wanted 1. Help Wanted 1 is—
Really, guys, mind-blowing information. Help Wanted 2 is not Help Wanted 1. I just got my mind blown.
An in-universe game made by Fazbear specifically to present to the public, whereas we really aren't fully sure what Help Wanted 2 is. Are we going through our own memories or security camera
Memories of the Mimic. Woo!
footage, or is this just the day-to-day jobs of an employee at the Pizzaplex? And if it is a day-to-day job, why does he go to the sister location bunker or to these outside attractions? Something doesn't add up here. It really makes you wonder if Fazer Blast is a current attraction or not. But if it is a current attraction, would that make Carney a new animatronic? Put a pin in that, we'll come back to it. For now, we'll move on to the other heavily Fall Fest associated minigame, the Carousel. Similar—
What? All right. Where the f is my? Oh my God. Help one of my friend's house put the Geo. Yeah. Keeping that thing on while playing the game is kind of a hassle. I won't lie. But yeah. Now, if I could just figure out what the hell is going on. There we go. All right. Anyway, there we go.
Similarly, this minigame has a lot of speculation saying that it might be a part of Fall Fest. The Carousel—
Excuse me?
itself seems very old-fashioned, using similar designs to what we see in FNAF 2, and we're fairly certain the toys in FNAF 2 were modeled after the toys of the time. It features Sun and Moon, which seem to be older animatronics than we realize, and of course, most obviously, there's the pumpkin, the hay, and the lantern again. At a first glance, the only other thing linking this to Fall Fest and other minigames is the fact that it ends in fire, just like the Phaser Blast minigames do. Between both of these ending in fire and all the fire hazards at the Dark Circus, it really seems like a fire is really important to Fall Fest in some way. Now, for a while that was it, but Help Wanted 2's Flat Mode came out. And after playing through it, it doesn't seem like Steel Wool added any teasers for future games like they have in the past, which is totally fine. However, now that it's a mouse and keyboard game, it's a lot easier to go out of bounds with a program like Universal Unreal Unlocker, which I did on stream, and I'm doing again today on stream at 9:30 p.m. EST. You can either find that here on the channel and subscribe to see it, or I'll also stream everything on Twitch at twitch.tv/RightHostYT. Thank you very much for following. That'd be really cool, actually. You should do that. Thank you. Anyway, last week I found something that I thought was huge. We actually found a few things and we'll be going over them. But pertinently, if you go out of bounds at the carousel level, you can see that same windmill and water tower. Further evidence showing that this carousel took place at Fall Fest. Not only that, but you can see the skeleton of a barn, a very similar skeleton to the one that we see in Help Wanted 1's Fall Fest. And furthermore, in the hard mode of carousel, it ends with a fire. And if you go out of bounds and look, there's fire all over the place, but there's a big centralized fire in the barn with a path leading directly to the carousel. Now, I'll be very honest. At first, I thought I was one of the first people to discover this because I did it the day that Flat Mode came out, not realizing that like 6 months ago, Horoscoped put a video going out of bounds in Help Wanted 2 and pointed out this exact same thing.
I wonder what kind of lore implications this could have given all the carnival hints.
Yeah, I wonder if there are any lore implications. So putting all of this together, what do we have for a potential future Fall Fest FNAF game? What lore or evidence do we have so far? Well, Fall Fest seems to be an ongoing annual circus/carnival. And yes, I know that the circus and the carnival are two different things, but Five Nights at Freddy's uses those terms interchangeably, so when talking about FNAF, I will as well. And it was ongoing from at least 1970 to 1983. It seems that they held birthday parties within the barn, and it seems very important that a fire happened at a Fall Fest, possibly starting within said barn. We can also infer that Fazbear is trying to bring back Fall Fest, not only with Dark Circus, but the fact that they're presenting Fall Fest to us in Help Wanted. And in both of these iterations, they seem to very purposely lean into the horror associated with the event, as well as fire hazards. This is all well and good, but there's one other piece of evidence that I think can help further steer where we're going here, and that's something I've neglected to mention so far: the similarities between Lefty and Carney, and one specific similarity that I haven't seen anyone talk about yet. Many people believe that Lefty was a refitted Carney animatronic, or in other words, that Carney was an older animatronic, and when making the Pizzeria Simulator, Henry reused that animatronic to create Lefty. And there's merit to this. I mean, they basically have the same model, just with a different paint job, and in the Help Wanted 2 gallery, they're making the exact same pose. But what if that theory is wrong? It's no surprise that Lefty is a Rockstar animatronic, the line of animatronics that Henry specifically made for the Pizzeria Simulator. He fits right in physically with the way his mouth works and his general physicality. And sure, the other line of animatronics that are very present in this game, the Mediocre Melodies, have similar physical appearances. There are distinct differences. After all, the Mediocre Melodies are strapped to battery packs, and something that I was able to find in—
What's the point of retrofitting Lefty in the first place? Like, why?
Help 2's Flat Mode, now that we can go out of bounds, the endoskeleton is different. When you look inside of Pig Patch, one of the Mediocre Melodies, you see that he has a very disc-based endoskeleton. But when looking inside Lefty, it's this squarish, boxy design. And these aren't just random endoskeletons or reused assets. Every other animatronic in this game has the endoskeleton we know they're supposed to have. Captain Foxy has an Endo 01, the Glamrocks have the Glamrock endos, and the sister location animatronics have their weird wiry amalgamations. So it begs the question, what about Carney? Lo and behold, he has the exact same endoskeleton as Lefty.
Okay, I'm gonna be honest, I did not see that coming. That's a pretty good detail.
the same one as the rest of the Rockstar animatronics.
Can't really deny that.
So why does this matter? Well, if Carney truly was much older than Lefty and instead was created closer to when the mediocre melodies were
why not just say Henry created
you would think
both?
they would have the similar endoskeleton, or at least that Carney would have a wholly different endoskeleton from Lefty, an animatronic ostensibly made much later in the timeline. But it doesn't. It has the same one that Lefty does, or the Rockstar animatronic endoskeleton in general. Speaking of the Rockstar animatronics, something about this theory always rubbed me the wrong
exact
way.
same Lefty.
We know that the Rockstar animatronics were made specifically for the FNAF 6 fake pizzeria for Henry's plan. So why would he make 4 original brand new state-of-the-art animatronics and then reuse an old animatronic for arguably the most important one? The other Rockstars are just there to fill up space and make the pizzeria seem more real. Meanwhile, Lefty is specifically created to do a very delicate task. So why would that be the one where he cut corners on? So how do we explain this? How does Carney have the same exact endoskeleton as Lefty, a Rockstar animatronic, but it doesn't seem like Carney came out before Lefty? What if instead of Lefty being a refitted Carney is a repainted and refitted Lefty? After all, like I've mentioned before on this channel, we never...
Isn't that like the consensus, the current consensus? I don't know, chat. What do you think? But like, I swear to God, that was like the current consensus. No, is that wait, what do you say?
Refitted Lefty.
Yeah. That's what people have been saying. Oh,
After all, like I've mentioned before on this channel, we never see Lefty burn at the FNAF 6 pizzeria. We see on screen Molten Freddy, Scrap Baby, and William Afton burn and melt away before our eyes. But
you know why? Because Charlotte doesn't move on yet. She still has to defeat William in the Afton amalgamation because Frights is in the games.
Never shown Lefty on fire. Where was Lefty? Did Henry keep him around in the hopes that he might be able to bring back Charlotte? It's unclear, but it's very possible at the least that Lefty's exoskeleton was mostly intact, along with his endoskeleton.
The mask
modern
was burned
Fazbear
because
is
the
much more
mask is
likely to
recovered from
reuse
the
and
fire
cut
site
corners,
it's
at least more likely than Henry is. So if modern Fazbear finds the FNAF 6 pizzeria and sees a mostly intact, weird version of Freddy, then why wouldn't they just repurpose it? Ultimately, why does this matter? Why am I arguing that Carney comes after Lefty? Am I here to say that Charlotte is back because of this? No, I don't think so anyway, at least not in Carney. But what this does tell us is that Fazbear is making new animatronics for Fall Fest. If Carney is a new animatronic, then that means Fazbear is making new things for an upcoming Fall Fest event. So to bake our evidence into a theory, I'm suggesting that the next Steel Wolf FNAF game will be a modern Fall Fest. Fazbear is bringing back the tradition with brand new attractions that are spooky and play on those old rumors about terrible fires, not to mention all those inflammatory comments. In this game, however, we'll unlock the lore as to what happened in the original Fall Fest and how it affected the following timeline.
That's actually a pretty good idea. It's a pretty good idea, but like, what's the point? What's the point of doing that if you're just... Like, why not just make the old game?
Of Five Nights at Freddy's.
Instead
So the
of,
big question
saying,
of that is, what would the lore of the original Fall Fest be? Why would that fire matter? Truthfully, I don't have any solid information to add there. It would be heavy speculation, but that's why you're here, isn't it? I have a pretty good educated guess. It's very, very low on the evidence scale, but I think it makes sense with the evidence we currently have. Something that shows up a lot in Ruin is Cassie's birthday. We see happy birthday in the quest markers, Roxy remembers Cassie's birthday, and a pivotal moment of her backstory is when nobody showed up to her birthday party except for Gregory. Nobody showed up.
Isn't it a coincidence that only these two are at the same birthday party and eventually they both get mind controlled by an AI? I'm dead.
Ostensibly includes her own father who worked at the Pizzaplex. So where was he? Was he already kidnapped at this point? Well, then she would have been living on her own while the Pizzaplex was still in operation, which seems weird. But if he's not dead or kidnapped, why else would he have avoided his own daughter's birthday party? Unless he avoids every birthday party, because when he was very young, his birthday party ended in tragedy. Maybe.
Wait. Huh? That was his birthday party?
Just maybe, at the early Fall Fest, in the barn where they held their birthday parties, it's Cassie's dad whose birthday party ended in flames, ending the entire tradition of Fall Fest, and possibly setting into motion the very mechanisms that began the entire franchise. After all, if Cassie's dad is our player in Help Wanted 2, what makes him so special? What do you think? What are your thoughts on the next Five Nights at Freddy's game? And specifically, why do you think the fire of Fall Fest matters? Because that's the only thing I can think of. In the meantime, if you want to hear more about what all was announced is coming out in the beginning of August, I made a whole video covering the news last.
You know what? I like it. I do like the idea of like it being like a mod. I like the idea of it being modern and like we go back. It's kind of cool. Another
The story
right,
ended at Ultimate Custom Night 6 years ago. Meanwhile, there's been 6 years of video games since, I think 4 or 5 in total. But what did happen? What got us from there to here? Well, today I'm going to try to bridge that gap. I believe that Freddy Fazbear Pizzeria Simulator, or Fnaf 6, isn't an ending, but instead a transition to the latter half of the franchise.
That's exactly what it is. Do you notice? So do you notice how both of the new book series that came out? Notice how both of them pick up from that.
And I genuinely think the answers we're given in that game and others give us some pretty strong inclinations as to what happened between them, telling us how.
Guys, we have Ritos is finally we did it.
We went from the fire that ended it all to the villain that just won't die.
That's exactly what I'm talking about, and that's why every time someone says the books aren't important, I'm like, okay, so tell me what happens from FNAF 6 to from between FNAF 6 and Security Breach, and they can never answer. Is that weird? It's kind of funny.
Slices, put on your apron.
Burn trap is not Afton. No, that's not a thing. Nope.
And let's bake ourselves a theory. But before we can solve FNAF 6 and the whole FNAF timeline, we need to know what's actually happening in Freddy Fazbear Pizzeria Simulator, at least as is directly told to us in-game and with associated books. So, what did happen?
Okay, but when there's an associated book with Ultimate Custom Night, you just ignore that.
Well, between the file name HRY, the fact that in the Silver Eyes he helped create the franchise, and the fact that he has a daughter killed by William Afton, I feel it's safe to assume that Henry is the one behind Freddy Fazbear Pizzeria Simulator. I'm just gonna call it FNAF 6. If I say Freddy Fazbear Pizzeria Simulator one more time, I'm going to go crazy. Henry Emily from the Silver Eyes is co-owner and creator of Fazbear with William Afton, and it was Henry's expertise that helped to create the animatronics. An expertise that we see in full bloom in this game. Henry wants to end all of this, the suffering that he feels partly responsible for, and the man behind the slaughter. So he creates the Pizzeria Simulator, a building meant to put up the facade of a Freddy's Pizza to lure in all of the remaining players in the timeline. But is it a real location? Like, do kids come here and play during the day and then we do stuff at night? That is kind of up for debate. On one hand, when we see the main map of the area in the final monologue, the center room where the pizzeria would be fades away. And also, Henry states that the maze is filled with sounds and sights and smells and misdirection. So the sounds we hear during the day shift of kids playing could be those sounds Henry is talking about. And I mean, surely Henry wouldn't lure several animatronics with a history of killing children to a building children are in, right? Right? Well, on the other hand, you do have to make
Lawsuits.
money in order to get things done. And sure, all of the money could theoretically be given by Henry to keep
Actually, yeah, that's a good question. If there aren't real people, why do we have lawsuits? We can't get
the
sued.
facade to the player, but you could also get
can't
sued,
get sued, there's
if you
no one
have
there.
too much liability and or go bankrupt. And I know Henry is trying to keep up appearances here, but
Yes,
dooming
but
his
still.
plan to bankruptcy because his volunteer didn't play pretend good enough seems like a step too far. Not to mention, we do physically see this room in Security Breach, implying that it is a real room. So it does seem like there's an
Too much.
actual
Too
functioning
much. He plays
pizzeria at this location. Probably on the ground floor, and then much lower underneath is where we are. Using this pizzeria, Henry is able to lure in Scrap Baby, Molten Freddy, Lefty, William Afton, and a helpful volunteer. William Afton looks like this in his current state after the fire of
He
Fnaf 3
ugly.
and possible other in-between game shenanigans, leading most players to call him Scrap Trap. Scrap Baby and Molten Freddy are the aftermath of Ennard. With teasers from the Scott Games websites, we know that Ennard left Michael's body, and then the inner pieces of Ennard started fighting with each other until eventually Circus Baby was kicked out from the group. So it's assumed that the rest of Ennard formed into Molten Freddy, and Circus Baby formed into Scrap Baby. However, the souls within Molten Freddy are up for debate. Some people believe it to
Oh my! No! No, they aren't, and here's why they aren't. Molten Freddy has the highest amount of remnants. Henry says the missing children are here. They're not in Baby, they're not in William, and they're not in Lefty, which only leaves one option. And also Molten MCI. So, no, it's not really up for debate.
be the victims of the Funtime animatronics.
They are.
Others posit that it could be the crying child. But
What? 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 So how does he have so much remnant then? Like, you gotta explain that part.
I do think the most likely option is that it is part of the missing child incident souls. If you want me to go more in depth and show more evidence for that,
Molten
I did just
MCI.
recently make a pretty big video on it right here, but for the sake of time, just that's what I believe. Lefty is actually a new animatronic, presumably built by Henry to capture the marionette. So again, another player in the timeline, but one that wouldn't come willingly. And finally, Henry's volunteer, the player, is also up for debate, although much less so than Molten Freddy. I and many others believe it's most likely Michael Afton. For one,
Yeah.
it fits thematically that Michael would be one of the main protagonists of the series and help end it all. And not to mention specifically this line.
And to you, my brave volunteer, who somehow found this job listing not intended for you. Although there was a way out planned for you, I have a feeling that's not what you want. I have a feeling that you are right where you want to be. I am remaining as well.
If this is Michael Afton, and he knows William Afton is in the building, it would make sense that he would also want to die here so he can finally rest as well. Now, some people think the first part of this line implies that we're not playing as Michael Afton, but instead some random
it
person.
just wasn't
After all, the line
intended
says
for, it was
this wasn't
intended for a random
for
dude.
them. But
Got
I
lucky.
argue the opposite. I believe that Henry intended this volunteer job to be for some random person. That's
Yeah.
why he planned an escape
Yeah,
route.
exactly.
He didn't intend for Michael Afton to show up because, as far as he's aware, Michael Afton should
He's
be
dead.
dead.
Yep.
If anything, he's probably surprised
Bingo!
Michael Afton is still around, and that's why the job wasn't intended for him. I mean,
Yep.
hell, even Mike thinks he's supposed to be dead.
I should be dead, but I'm not.
Once everyone is in the building, Henry burns everything to the ground in an attempt to have everyone find peace or rest, and or William Afton burn in hell forever. Something worth noting, however, we do once again see this room in Security Breach, and it looks mostly unburnt. So it seems likely that the maze was burnt, whereas the actual pizzeria section was left relatively unharmed. Maybe that's what caused the sinkhole. It was burned so much that the structural integrity fell, and the whole building sunk down, mostly intact. So why isn't this the end of the story? Everyone is trapped in a
Well, it
metal
is.
locked
It's the
maze
end of
and
the
burnt to
Afton
ash.
story.
It seems pretty final. Well, in Security Breach and its free DLC Ruin, we can travel to this building, and there are still animatronics inside. So did nothing work? Was Henry's plan entirely for naught? Let's build out our timeline of events after the FNAF 6 fire and see if we can make our way to Security Breach to figure that out. Immediately after FNAF 6, it's basically confirmed. confirmed, not directly confirmed, but incredibly evidentiarily solid that Ultimate Custom Night takes place. A never-ending torment of William Afton using his own agony and memories by the vengeful spirit. We're nearly certain of this thanks to a few things. From the games, we have a lot of death quotes that allude to the fact we're playing as William Afton.
I am a burning reminder of your misdeeds.
Also, Nightmare Freddy says, I am remade, but not by you, which means whoever is the player made the nightmares, and that's William.
In the fearful reflection
It's like a solid 2 minutes of voice lines that confirm the player's William.
And that someone is keeping us here even though they tried to burn us.
greetings from the fire and from the one you should not have killed.
He tried to release you. He tried to release us.
But I won't.
But I'm not gonna let that
I
happen.
will hold you here.
I will hold you here. I will keep you here. No matter how many times they burn us.
That, paired with the story The Man in Room 1280, makes this fairly straightforward. Well, what is The Man in Room 1280? Well, I'll be incredibly brief. It's a Fazbear Fright story. Here's a quick summary. Essentially, William Afton should be dead, but instead he's an incredibly burnt corpse that's somehow barely alive with semi-translucent skin in a hospital. The nurses and doctors there have even tried to put him down to put him out of his misery, but he just won't die. Not only that, but a spirit of a boy with curly hair and an alligator mask keeps chasing them off. Later in the story, we find out that there are two consciousnesses within his mind. In another story, we learn that that other consciousness is that boy named Andrew. I was being quick about it. In another story, we learn that that consciousness was a boy named Andrew, and he doesn't remember why, but he knows that he hated William so much that he wanted to keep him alive as long as possible to torture him with his own mind. Does this sound familiar? This process is likely what we're seeing
It's exactly how UCN is described. Identically.
in Ultimate Custom Night. William Afton being kept alive by a vengeful spirit to torture him forever for what he's done. How is that possible? Well, again, we have a pretty good idea on this because of Fazbear Frights. Essentially, it's likely that it's done through agony. Frankly, we do not have time to go into the differences of Remnant and agony in this video. But again, lucky for you, I did an entire video on it, a couple of them, but the main one is right here. For now, if you don't want to watch that, just take my word that Remnant is the mixture of soul or positive memory and emotion and metal, whereas agony is specifically the energy
Negative
associated with the most negative form of human emotion, agony. This energy, like Remnant, is able to possess objects and manifest in different ways.
It's
But we
also
see in the
stronger.
Fazbear Frights stories that it's also
Way
able to affect
stronger.
memories. An example of this in the epilogues,
The ball
Eleanor,
pit.
a character that I don't have time to get into, traps a detective in his own mind with her own memories and his, torturing him with them. All this to say, at the FNAF 6 location, there's definitely a lot of Remnant. However, if the blueprint hypothesis by William Afton is true, then excessive heat can neutralize Remnant. That being said, we don't know what neutralizes agony, so it's possible that heat doesn't. In other words, there's a very high possibility that the FNAF 6 fire did burn away all of the remaining remnant of the series, but left a massive pile of agony with melted animatronics all over. And
Don't
that
say
sounds
that's
like a
the blob,
perfect
please.
place for William Afton to be forever tormented in his own mind. Not to mention, if what I believe is true, then the other remaining souls at the location find peace.
Oh, let me guess. You're saying you're gonna say afterwards Charlotte creates FNAF World, which is wrong. You could say she does the mini games. That would be more aligned with the canon.
With FNAF World around the same time. It's a nice, neat bow on the end of the story. William Afton is stuck in this burnt basement, forever reliving his worst memories, and all the other souls move on. So why is it not the end of the story? Well,
Because
that
it's not the
depends
end.
on what you believe. What we're about to talk about, I think, is possibly the biggest debate in the Five Nights
Yeah, we got yes. Here we go. Here you're about to say our frights in the games. Well, I'm gonna tell you this: the Stitch line. You realize this, the gap from 6 to Security Breach is perfectly filled by the Stitch line. And you just ignore that.
at Freddy's fandom. Do you believe that the Fazbear Fright stories, notably the epilogues and associated stories with them, are within the same continuity of the games?
Yes.
If you do believe in
Yes.
that, then that's the rest of this video. The
Yes.
stories of those books tell us what happens after FNAF 6.
Bingo. All right, we're done. Next one. I'm gonna skip this one because
Retirement grave. We'll just see about that. Hello, Internet! Welcome to Game Theory, the show that's happy to let someone else solve FNAF for a change. Since the release of Security Breach, it feels like there's been a massive new wave of FNAF theorizing on YouTube. We've seen the rise of people like John Fnaf, Rye Toast, ID's Fantasy, and dozens more, all joining us in the good fight to
There's no way. Hey! There's no way you put him instead of Impulse Evan. That's crazy.
try and solve the infuriating lore of this franchise. And just over a month ago, a new challenger, or should I say challengers, entered the ring. The channel dual process theory, and they went big for their first outing,
and they were wrong. So how does that feel?
making the claim that they'd solved the entirety of FNAF in their very first video. And not only were they laying down a timeline for the whole series, they also claimed to have solved a particular mystery that has been bugging us theorists for a long time. What is the name of the crying child? After
Garrett.
nearly 10 years, we still just call him the crying child, despite the fact
Garrett.
that every other character in this franchise
Garrett,
seems to
Garrett,
get a name.
Garrett,
Mike,
Garrett.
Elizabeth, Charlie, even the missing children got names. So why is this kid's name left blank? Well, according
It's not.
to dual process theory, it's not that he doesn't have a name, it's that we just missed it. We've had the name all along, we've just been
It's
giving
in the movie.
it to someone else. They suggest that the crying child's name is Cassidy. The
Next video.
On this channel is my weekly Five Nights at Freddy's podcast, and I take questions and theories via email and Spotify for that podcast. Sometimes you dedicate your career to trying to solve the theories of Five Nights at Freddy's, and then somebody just sends you an email that's a better idea than you've had in a while. For anyone who doesn't know, the other half of the major content on this channel is my weekly Five Nights at Freddy's podcast. Well, he's this weird-looking sprite in the redwoods at the bottom of Fnaf World and in an Ultimate Custom Night Easter egg. Let's break that down a bit. Here's the sprite. It definitely looks like he's fishing, and he says as much, and it also seems like he has this long, toothy jaw, leading many people to believe he's some kind of crocodile character. He also appears to be sitting on something. The woods he appears in shows up in Fnaf World and Ultimate Custom Night like I previously mentioned. In Ultimate Custom Night, you can get there by only turning on Old Man Consequences and then completing his minigame, to which you're transported there and you get some strange Easter eggs. For one, there's background audio that, if slowed down, sound like someone
FNAF
screaming
World
Mike
connection.
and Henry and help me, which seems like it's probably William screaming in agony. But if you go to this Old Man Consequences, he tells you to leave the demons with his demons and it's better just to rest here, and then the game will end. However, with Ultimate Custom Night specifically, there's a major question we need to ask. Is this real? Like, does this actually exist? After all, Ultimate Custom Night is almost certainly the creation of the Vengeful Spirit using the memories of William Afton and the Vengeful Spirit itself. So much of Ultimate Custom Night isn't actually real, but instead a mental prison. So is this an extension of that? Or is this actually Old Man Consequences Woods? Well, it's
no.
notable that
Yes,
Old Man
but no.
Consequences in this
And
scene
the
is
camera
imploring the
froze.
Vengeful Spirit to stop what they're doing. Every other creation in Ultimate Custom
don't
Night
make
is
sense,
just
yo.
existing to punish William Afton, and that's it. This is the only thing that is speaking to the Vengeful Spirit, telling them to chill out. This leads me to believe that this isn't created by the Vengeful Spirit, but rather something that was stumbled upon while doing Ultimate Custom Night. However, of course, this is the second appearance of Old Man Consequences, and a reference to
FNAF
the first,
World.
as the first appearance happens in FNAF World. Throughout the game, you can enter these glitchy sub-tunnels to go down a layer to get through impossible objects. However, you're warned by Fredbear in the game to not go too deep because you might not make it back.
You might,
and of
yeah.
course, later in the game, you're able to do exactly that. Go 3 layers deep and then 1 more layer down. And doing so lands you in Old Man Consequences Woods. And in this location, there's 2 endings for the game. One of them, you simply speak to Old Man Consequences. And when you do, he tells you, "I'm sorry to say that you have gone too deep into the code." There is no way back out. My name is Old Man Consequences. Come have a seat.
Let's
fish
fish here for a while. Yeah, nowhere
You
else
have
to
nowhere
go.
else to go. However, there's another ending. One that actually makes Old Man
Drown in
Consequences
the
out
lake.
to be a liar. He tells you that there's nowhere else to go, but you can actually force Fredbear into the lake itself, and then you seemingly fall for a very long time, until eventually seeing this scene. And in doing this, you get the drowning ending. Notably, you can do the same thing in Ultimate Custom Night, but doing so crashes the game, and unlocks the ending in Fnaf World if you have both games on your computer and haven't gotten that achievement yet on the other game. Part of me wonders if this is further evidence that the Vengeful Spirit is the spirit inside Golden Freddy. Because if Golden Freddy drowns and then the game just crashes, I don't know, this is worth mentioning. So these are the only appearances of the actual character of Old Man Consequences. However, there's heavy speculation that character
no. You wanna play the just saying game? Okay, hold on.
Gotten that achievement yet on the other game. Part of me wonders if this is further evidence that the Vengeful Spirit is the spirit inside Golden Freddy, because if Golden Freddy drowns and then the game just crashes, I don't know, this is worth.
Okay, but like, you know, like the he, him pronouns and Cassie's a girl, and you know how like, William didn't kill a suit, but he killed a child? Ooh, I don't know, I'm just saying. Also, you know, how the Vengeful Spirit described in Frights, which is meant to fill in blanks, it's not wearing a Golden Freddy mask. I don't know, man, I'm just saying.
Worth mentioning. So these are the only appearances of the actual character of Old Man Consequences. However, there's heavy speculation that that character is still relevant in modern FNAF as the old man in Princess Quest. Now like I said, this is just a theory, but let's break down this speculation. First of all, they use a very similar shade of color, and it's not exactly a common one. Salmon characters, or whatever this pinkish reddish shade is, are very striking and seemingly specific. They also share a similar role. As we'll see, the Old Man in Princess Quest, once you've completed your quest, tells you that it's time to sleep, and every time we see Old Man Consequences, he tells us, well, it's time to rest. So, I mean, you know. But what specifically does the Old Man in Princess Quest do? Well, in the first and third Princess Quest games, he doesn't appear at all. Right? But in the second Princess Quest game, he begins and ends it. The second Princess Quest game starts with us waking up in a cave after being attacked by that rabbit monstrosity, to which the Old Man says, "You are alive. That is good. Take the Sword of Light and go." And then he gives us that Sword of Light to protect ourselves and fend off the rabbit creatures. By the end of that game, we get a normal looking room with a glitchy door on the end, and once again that old man, who now says, "Congratulations. Your quest is done. Time to sleep." Again, this isn't a full truth. Our quest maybe just was to survive, but we can continue onwards, and doing so puts us into a help wanted looking area, the beginning of Princess Quest 3. Now, that's the only appearance of the old man in Security Breach and Ruin inside those cavern levels of Princess Quest 2. But in Help Wanted 2, we get to play Princess Quest 4, and we meet the old man again, but this time his English is much worse. He greets us at the beginning of the game and says, "You are one, and you remain. What is left that is hidden? Now go to next room." And instead, this time we're left a dark purple sword, not the Sword of Light. Then at the end of the game, once we're inside the game itself and at its deepest depth, we once again meet him, to which we give him the Vanny mask and he says, "It is a fair trade," giving us the Glitch Trap plushie. All of this is incredibly notable and incredibly strange, but it leaves the question, is the old man Old Man Consequences? Well, yes and no. I think there's enough evidence for me to confidently believe the theory that the Princess Quest 2 Old Man is Old Man Consequences.
Like he is and he's
like I've said, visually and thematically they're very similar, urging the player to rest when the job is done. And not to mention location. Princess Quest 2 is the only game in Security Breach where we see the old man, and specifically he appears in a cave area, caves that look a lot like the ones we see in Ruin. Old Man Consequences only appears in Fnaf World and Ultimate Custom Night, but specifically he appears in a cave area, caves that look a lot like the ones we see in Ruin. Fnaf World and Ultimate Custom Night, both things that I believe take place after the parallel that mushrooms. Not
Error.
years in Fnaf ourselves, years in Fnaf world and ultimate custom night. Both things that I believe take place after the fire from the Freddy Fazbear Pizza simulator
What? Huh. Okay.
in FNAF 6. This
Something is wrong with the headset. I don't know what the hell. What is... Alright, you know what?
location would be the building we find in these caves. So if Old Man is in the caves, so is Old
What? That doesn't make sense.
literally in caves. So it's a nice parallel there, if not a specific example. Sometimes you dedicate your career to trying to
Okay,
solve the theories
what
of
the hell?
Freddy's, and then somebody just sends you an email that's a better idea than you've had in a while. For anyone who doesn't know,
Alright.
the other half of the major
So we'll put this on pause. Until my headset decides to work. Anyways. So yeah, I guess, can't really, the fault is I can't really continue. It's kind of a big issue. So, we'll postpone this. Unfortunately. Yeah. Alright, well, yeah.